Let's talk 观点好谈. Today we have the great privilege to invite Tony Hu, the former U.S. Department of Defense official, to join us in the discussion on U.S. budget cut versus military power. Welcome, Tony. Such a great pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Jasmine. I'm happy to be here.
So we know that the U.S. President Trump slashed defense spending by 8%, yet claimed he'd rebuild U.S. military deterrence. That's a $50 billion cut per year. However, the world wants to know how exactly do you cut hard and build strong at the same time. So what exactly is he rebuilding?
Well, he's trying to cut a lot of duplications, and he also canceled a lot of the consulting firms' contracts to save money. And what he wants to spend on, and you heard this, the Golden Dome missile defense system. And he's also becoming more aware of the threat to our national security from China, and he wants to build a military that can for sure defeat China in case it ever happens. So that's what he wants to cut, and that's what he wants to spend.
Okay, so he wants to cut the budget and then build his big and beautiful Golden Dome.
Yes.
And is that even realistic? If you cut so much budget, can you still maintain that high level of security and military?
It's hard, and nobody's seen the actual plan. It's still an idea, you know. Now, just like many of the other things that he talked about, a lot of times the idea is there, but implementation is tough because you're not going to be able to save that much money to do the things that he wants to do.
We can see the internal conflicts, including all the disarray. Okay, so there's classified leaks, there's group chats spilling military plans, and top officials getting fired. So with all this level of internal chaos, how can U.S. still convince the world that it's battle ready when it's coming?
It is tough because many of the very competent leaders were removed, like the previous chairman, C.Q. Brown, and then replaced with people who doesn't have the same competency and experience, and that causes mistakes, and that's what we're seeing now. And I don't think we have seen the end of it. I suspect there'll be more mistakes. It's unfortunate, and of course it causes a loss of trust and confidence in many of the leadership positions. But there's a difference between these positions and the warfighting positions, okay? So, for example, the security of Western Pacific is the job of the Pacific Command, Indo-Pacific Command. And Admiral Paparo is the commander of Indo-Pacific Command. And if you look at some of his recent interviews, he's very confident that he can do this job. And I truly believe him, because if you look at the force structure, the force structure in Asia is actually growing, okay? So it's not linked directly. Okay, decision-making process might slow down a bit at the highest level, but as far as the capability, the capacity to handle any aggression in the Pacific, I don't think that has changed. If anything, I think we have actually improved.
But that is in a big picture, right? And a lot of changes, it wouldn't happen just the other day, but it's those slow, departing from each other, that's when you see the whole structure getting loose. And especially when we see also how the U.S. Attitude toward the allies, the whole world saw how Zelensky's White House visit was so awkward. And allies were scared. At that time, all Taiwanese people are very scared. We're very scared too when we saw the visit of Zelensky in the White House. Mm-hmm. And people were saying, okay, so if U.S. cannot provide a solid defense support for Ukraine, that means the defense credibility is lowering. And in that case, how can U.S., will it be denting, global demand on the U.S. weapons? Actually,
it's all separate issues, right? Zelensky's visit was a disaster. But that is also because if you look at what happens to Ukraine if Russia takes over, how does that impact U.S. national interest, okay? That impact actually is low because Ukraine issue is actually a European issue. for Taiwan, the impact on national security is much greater. And I think Trump recognized that because of his staff also has been briefing him. So that's a little bit different. So the confidence level, the trust with NATO is lower, no doubt. And our NATO friends of the past has obviously showing their disappointment with U.S. action. And but that's Europe. Asia, if you look at Asia, United States is tying together Japan and Philippines. They're having mutual defense type support, the acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, the basing agreements, the MOUs that they are signing with each other so each other can then use each other's bases and support, and United States tying Japan and Korea together. And these type of things are happening in Asia, which is, if you look at it separately, it's totally different from what's happening in Europe. That is an indication of Trump's focus on Asia because, like I said earlier, he recognized that the predominant threat to U.S. national security is going to be China for the next foreseeable future.
Right. And also on the topic of defense credibility, since, right now, allies, some are saying that might be fearing of the kill switch because the U.S. made arms. U.S. still has control of the software and the weapons they sell. So if the defense credibility lowers, so does countries' confidence in the defense system.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So just like if you buy antivirus software for your computer, right? So the company that sells you holds the source code and they update it, and next year they offer it to you again. Do you want to buy the latest version? If you don't buy it, does your computer die? No, it continues to work. Iran, the best fighter Iran has is the F-14, the stuff that you saw on Top Gun, okay? That's still their best fighter. They bought that in the late 70s, early 80s when the Shah was in place. If the United States had a kill switch, we'd have got to remove that already, right? They still fly the F-14, F-4s. So there's no such thing. But there is software updates to make sure the people who buy U.S. system gets the latest in threat, in ability. When the enemy improves, you want to improve your system. But if you don't improve, that's okay. Taiwan's Hawk missiles were just recently retired. Retired about 2 years ago. But Taiwan Hawk system has not been updated for 20 years. But every year during Hangguan exercise, it still fires. So, and there's no such thing as a kill switch. So that once again, that's I believe it's a cognitive warfare by China, trying to instill doubt in people's mind about Taiwan's ability to use its weapon system, and it's not true. There's no such a thing, and I think as far as the impact on the U.S. defense industry, I don't see it.
I see, but also speaking of the military. Cutting down the military defense, Trump is considering giving up NATO command. And so if he actually gives up the NATO command, does it also signal that the U.S. is also giving up the leadership position in the world on military?
Well, in Trump's America First strategy, there is an element of isolationism, okay? During his first term, he had threatened to pull out of NATO. And only through his national security advisor and also the Secretary of State, Pompeo at the time, that they stopped him from pulling out of NATO. He thought NATO countries were taking advantage of the United States. What he doesn't realize is U.S. national security after World War II has always been forward presence. We don't wait for the enemy to attack our homeland. We want to stop the war at our enemy's house. In order to do that, we need friends to allow us to forward position our troops so that we can fight in our enemy's home and not in our home. So I think that concept was lost with President Trump because our presence in Europe, in Japan, in Korea, the main purpose is for the defense of the homeland so that we can stop the enemy at their house and not at our house. So but he thinks that all our ally friends are taking advantage of the United States, including Japan and Korea, when the fact is we're glad to have friends that allow our troops to be forward present to protect the homeland. So what he's doing now, obviously, in my personal view, it's not good for U.S. long-term national security. And he thinks NATO is a place where the United States spends too much money, which in fact it's not. National security is not a money-making business. And I think he's thinking it that way. We should charge more from our friends so that we can make some money. And I think that's a mistake, because national security is what American people demand. We pay taxes. We want to be safe. Pay that money so that we can be safe. It's a situation I'm not sure during his presidency is going to change. So that isolationism idea, since that's so deeply ingrained, that America first, I'm not sure in the long term it's a good long-term strategy.
Especially when we see how the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command has been pointing out that the China is actually outbuilding the U.S. Navy. And to us in Taiwan, it's a very warning signal. If there is a war, are we ready to fight this gap? Because it's just impossible to, when the gap is, getting larger.
Yes, well, the growth of the People's Liberation Army, Air Force, Navy, it's a fact. China got more money. They're building more ships, more planes, more missiles, more everything. More is more. But does that equate to combat capability? Maybe not. Because you need the hardware, and you need the people, and you need the training, you need the experience, the knowledge. I mean, I'm not proud to say this, but United States military are battle trained. We're battle toughened, and we're passing this knowledge to our allies and friends. We conduct over 40 exercises a year in the Pacific with Japan, Korea, Philippines, and other countries. And we're passing that knowledge to Taiwan. We have training teams, even now as we speak. We have hundreds of U.S. military personnel in Taiwan providing this type of training, passing on our knowledge. So hardware is one thing, but the ability to execute warfare is different. So the overall result actually is the way how you can fight. It's not how many plane or ship or different things that you have. So I think, and Admiral Paparo have said this again and again, that he's confident he can do his job, which is maintaining peace and stability in the Western Pacific. And if China attacks, he will turn the Taiwan Strait into hellscape. Okay, because Taiwan Strait, if you think about that, you have nowhere to hide.
Yes.
It's not like in Ukraine, you got trees, mountains, rivers, you can hide and take cover. China wants to come over. Their airplane, their ships are in wide open space, and it's a kill zone. It's a kill zone. And Taiwan's defense scenario ought to be, let them come, and we will take care of you over Taiwan Strait. Taiwan Strait will be a graveyard for the PLA.
Well, of course, Taiwan now still depends heavily on foreign arms. So the question is, people are asking, should Taiwan, diversify the military suppliers other than just from the United States? What's your thought on that?
I think Taiwan should, if it can, but it's not so simple. Obviously, right now, due to political reason, China is pressuring all these countries whenever they thought about helping Taiwan, especially on the defense area, and many of the country backs down. And so in the near term anyways, it's going to be hard for Taiwan to diversify. In the future, when more countries view China as a threat to their own national security, that might change. That might change, but we need to step back a little bit. When you do that, when you diversify, you have to walk into it with your eyes wide open, because if you do end up buying another country's weapon system, you need to buy the entire support infrastructure. Okay, it's not just you buy another plane from country B. You need to buy parts and the logistic computer linkage. you need to have
It has
the
to
stock.
come with the whole package.
It comes the whole package,
Yeah.
the stock level and how long does the stuff last. These are the type of support philosophy Taiwan is used to with America. With the United States, we have the same logistics system. Right now, a supply guy in Taiwan's Army base need to order a part for the M1 tank. It's it's linked with the United States. Here, I need it, and they immediately see, okay, when is delivery and how the money is gonna handle it. So
it's already structured.
It's already structured in place, and it's pretty efficient. So when you find a new supply source, all this need to be reestablished. It's doable, obviously. It just involves complication that if Taiwan does decide to go that way, just be ready to make sure you think about the entire thing.
But it also might be more confusing because some countries are adapting that and it confused their own system.
That is absolutely true, and it'd be worse if they use a different language.
Oh my God, that would be disaster. Well, thank you, Tony, so much for joining us today and sharing with us your expertise.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jasmine.